What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Um, I'm sorry that I couldn't get this video out on the same day as the last controversial video. I guess it was somewhat controversial. The last time you saw me, I believe, was when I was talking about Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, that whole, um, I suppose, phenomenon that we have going on in the world right now. And something else crossed my mind while I was talking about that, and I was planning on making a video about it, but I couldn't do it at the same time as that one. So we have a thing going on here in the Americas, which I know a lot of you guys who follow me are not. You may not be familiar with, but we are experiencing a change where a lot of our monuments and statues of certain historical figures are being taken down or removed from public places. Now, a lot of these statues and historical monuments have a history of slavery or racism or something to that effect, even genocide, even something to that effect at the very least. So I did want to talk about that today. I wanted to go over a little bit of that and talk about why I support the tearing down of these monuments, statues, and historical icons, or whatever the case may be. Um, so, a couple of my examples, like locally here, there is a school called Columbus State Community College. That was where I had gone to school for about a year. I only went for about a year. And they have a big, huge statue of Christopher Columbus in the middle of the campus. And it was kind of a regular thing for that statue to be defaced or tagged or something. When I was going there, they painted the face of Christopher Columbus as well as his hands red to symbolize the blood that was on his hands. That, because he kind of initiated the, I suppose, immigration of. I wouldn't necessarily say Europeans. I would say at that time, and it was kind of like that wave, that it was like a negative wave that started after his landing in the so-called Americas. That's one thing I also want to talk about too, is like, well, I'm going to get all over the place, but I want to make sure that I stay streamlined because there's so much information to go over, so much to talk about, and I don't want to get lost in my own words. But yes, so they are planning to remove that statue of Christopher Columbus from Columbus State Community College. And I believe there are talks of renaming the actual school from Columbus State to something else. There's even talks of renaming the city of Columbus to something else, which I kind of support all of those things. You shouldn't name these things after somebody who had a awful history, So first things first, I have to talk about the people who are up for being, their monuments being torn down and why I support them, who they were actually. So Christopher Columbus, as a lot of us are getting hip to, was not really a good guy, at least for anybody of color. If you talk about Native Americans or anybody from the Trinidadian area, South American area, anything like that, you would know that there shouldn't be any monuments up of him because he caused a lot. His very first landing, he took back slaves with him. He literally took back captive natives from where he landed in the Bahamian Islands. So it's like the very first time you encounter natives here, you're like, hey, these are Indians, and it's like, hey, no, we're not. Well, yeah, you are because I said so. Now come with me, chain you up, and I'm gonna take you back here and sell you and rape you and do whatever I feel like doing to you. And then not only that, but he took over an area down there and subjugated the what is known as the Taino population, or what was known as the Taino. I don't think that they're like completely wiped from existence, but they were damn near wiped out from the diseases and the abuse that they suffered under Columbus's reign. Really, like he really kind of ran that joint. And so like that's one of the things, like you have to look up Christopher Columbus and the Taino, or Taino is how it's spelled. I couldn't. I'm gonna look at it really quick because I wanted to make sure that I had the names and pronunciations at least somewhat correct. because from what I knew of Christopher Columbus, what I learned back in school, I knew wasn't true because my parents had given me college textbooks from their courses and was like, yeah, like that's not it. This is kind of what's actually happened. I don't know why they're telling you this. And so one of the things that I wanted to bring up when it came to Christopher Columbus specifically is that it's Christopher Columbus discovered America, but he never landed in America. He landed in the Bahamas, and then after a couple more expeditions, he landed further south towards South America. So he actually never landed on the North American continent. So I'm not really sure. Like, I suppose his voyages led to the conquest of the North American continents. North American continent, but that's where we get to the history and the blood that's on his hands. Because if you want to give Christopher Columbus the credit of discovering America, or at least his voyages that led to the discovery of America, then you also have to place on him the fact that, you know, after the Europeans came here, blood followed, you know, and a war followed, and slavery and subjugation and genocide followed. And so you kind of have to put that on this person, is like, why do we have statues of him? Like, I get it. He's an historical figure. I get it. And you know, a lot of people have bad history, but this dude was a bad guy. So I don't understand why you would want a statue up, a monument honoring this dude who killed a lot of people because he felt superior to them. He came here, like I said, his very first voyage here, he said, you guys are Indians. We said, no, we're not. We're Taino. And he's like, no, you're Indians. I landed here. I told you I was going to make it. Come with me. And took them captive and took them back, like, as proof. And then, not only that, when he was running running there, he was having rain over there. If they didn't, like, because he was using them for gold. And that's what it was. Like, that's one of the reasons why so many people were trying to come over here, is because of the natural resources, especially gold. So, and that goes to a whole nother group of natives that were exploited, and their leader was kidnapped, and the entire colony was just wiped out of existence due to disease. That happened all over the North and South Americas. But I digress. So when it comes to Christopher Columbus, it's hard for people who are not of European descent, and even people who are of European descent. You can't really honor a dude who came here and was just like, yeah, I'm taking this joint over. And it's like, you can remember him in the history books, but then they couldn't even do that correctly. So one of my big things about this whole topic is that people are saying, one of the things that naysayers will say is, you can't erase history. You tearing down these monuments is erasing the history. And my thing is, that's stupid. Because not one time have I ever heard of anybody going to look at a statue to learn the history of this character. We have access to the internet. I know there's a lot of lies on there. We have access to textbooks, which is what they give you in schools. If schools wanted you to learn from monuments, then they wouldn't give you textbooks in the class. They would give you little statuettes and monuments and say, this guy was this and he did that. No, they give you textbooks, which also had a false, like, they did not tell you everything. And it wasn't necessarily because the textbook didn't have it in there. It's because of the curriculum. They would say, turn to page 42. Here's Christopher Columbus. He sailed the ocean blue in 1492 and discovered America. Well, that's a lie. That's not true. That's very much not true at all. And then you're not going to talk about the part where he enslaved the Taino people and subjugated them to absolute brutality, to where he's cutting their hands off for not farming gold fast enough, and for not, working hard enough, and mutilating the people there. And so it's hard for people like myself, because my family, I kind of have it bad both ways. My mother is of African descent and my father is of Native American descent. So I kind of got it bad on both ways, to where, like, both of my histories on both sides have been damn near wiped out. I don't really know most of my true heritage. I don't really know too much of where I come from. So when I see this guy, I look at him as a monster, and I think he deserves to be not necessarily erased from history, but damn so not honored. No way at all. So I would say, for those of you guys who are like, hey, it's history, I remember that statue from when I was a kid, I used to drive by it all the time. Well, you have to understand, you're not just looking at this from your eyes. You're looking at it from the people who were affected by him, by the people, the Native American people who he called Indians, which we still are just now fixing and correcting. We're calling people Indians when what do you call a Native American person? An Indian? Well, then what do you call somebody who comes from India? An Indian. So you got to make sure that, like, he thought he landed in India, but we're still calling Native American people Indians, and that's low key insulting. So it's not the move. You know, if you want to have this monument of him, at the very least put it in a history museum. I don't even think you should do that. You should tear down all the statues of this goofball who was like, the dude was actually taken away. All of his ranks were stripped of him because he failed so much. You got to really look up a lot of stuff about this dude, because like I haven't done most of my research when it came to Christopher Columbus for a while, since I hadn't been, it's been, I think, a year since I took the course on Western civilization where we talked about him. So I wasn't exactly fresh, so I had to do a little refresher course on Christopher Columbus to make sure I had my facts straight and times and dates and stuff like that, and things he did at least somewhat accurate, because I don't want to give out false information. I'm not trying to really preach a narrative. I'm just trying to tell you about why I feel the way I feel and the direction I'm coming from. So I don't believe in the erasure of history. I don't believe in twisting history to fit your narrative, because that's what they did for Christopher Columbus. They twisted the narrative to make it seem like Christopher Columbus was a good guy, because they didn't tell you about the bad things he did, and they told you, hey, he discovered America for the Europeans, for the European colonies, and they came over here and they settled. Well, did you tell them about the bad things he did? No, you didn't. Why? Why not? So you could keep your statues up of him and honor him and revere him? That's weird. It's almost like an idolization. It's really weird. So I that's my feelings on Christopher Columbus, and why I think him and icons like him, who led to the destruction and genocide of the Native American people, many of the colonists who you have, the colonizers who you have statues of, tear them all down. We need to put them in history books, and we will leave them there. That is where they belong. They do not belong on monuments. They don't belong there. It doesn't make any sense to me. So another one that is big, and especially in my area, for some reason, I don't understand why, because I'm in northern Ohio, so it's just really weird, is Robert E. Lee. There's schools named after Robert E. Lee, statues, monuments, just buildings, and there's streets. Like Robert E. Lee has so many things named after him in Ohio that it's baffling, because he was a Southern leader. So there's no point in Ohio that it's ever been a part of the South. Like, no matter what, Ohio's always been a northern state, so it was always one of the northern places. It just never made any sense. Ohio never seceded from the Union, so why is so much of Ohio repping Robert E. Lee? It doesn't make any sense. But that, like I said, I digress. There's a lot to go over. But with Robert E. Lee tearing a lot of his monuments and statues down, yes, all of the Confederate monuments, including the flag, need to go away. Now, when I say go away, I don't necessarily mean to just erase them from history. Once again, I don't understand why people go straight to that. Like, you're going to get rid of history. No. But if you have a group that wanted to destroy America as we know it, then why do you think it's okay for that group, after they lose the war, to get to continue to fly their flag around? It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like if you have a Nazi flag, if somebody's repping Nazi Germany and waving it around here, a lot of people would be like, yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to wave the flag of one of our enemies that wanted us destroyed. To me, like, you have these flags. You got the ISIS flag, you got the Confederate flag, and you've got the Nazi flag. All of these flags represented groups of people that wanted to see America destroyed as it is. And they murdered people. They didn't believe in the ideals and values that America was stating itself to believe in. You want to believe in liberty and freedom and justice, and all men and women are created equal. Well, then these flags don't really represent that. So we'll talk about that a little bit. The Confederacy. That war was fought over slavery. States' rights to slavery. Let's just talk about it. Let's get it out there. It ain't no, it's so the Southern rights. Yes, Southern rights to own slaves. The slavery was such a huge economic impact in the South that of course they're going to go to war over it. Whether you went to war over the economic impact that slavery would have after its abolishment, then you're still going to war over slavery. So you can't be like states' rights to free trade. Free trade of what? People. People. You can't sit here like people. A lot of people love to say the war wasn't started over slavery or the war wasn't because of slavery. Listen, I get it. A lot of wars have multiple things. I don't think that the Civil War was only about slavery. It could have been about restrictions on goods and things like that, but primarily it was about slavery. And Robert E. Lee he told you, he said straight up out of his own face after they lost, he said that he accepted the 13th Amendment, which gave us the right to be a free people, but he would not accept us as equal to white men. That is something that he actually said. I can actually find the quote up here where I was reading and I was just like, see, I knew that I had seen something familiar like this, but it's legit. Like he genuinely did not believe that whites and blacks were equal. And let me see here. It's right here. Oops. Okay, so in 1865, Lee became president of Washington College in Lexington, Virginia. In that position, he supported reconciliation between North and South. He accepted the extinction of slavery provided for by the 13th Amendment, but opposed racial equality for African Americans. So, with that being said, it's like, yeah, dude was a racist, and he owned slaves. And this is one thing that I've heard some conservatives say, which is weird. They say that he freed his wife's slaves. Yeah, he did. He freed his wife's slaves. But he freed his wife's slaves because her father demanded that his slaves be freed upon his death. So in his will, after the slaves were transferred to her because she inherited his will, he demanded in his will that his slaves be freed. So yeah, they freed his wife's slaves, but he still kept his. So I don't understand, like when people try to paint a good picture of Robert E. Lee, it's really weird because it's like in order to do that, you have to ignore that he had his slaves whipped and then had their backs washed with brine to make them feel more pain. So, and this is something this is accounted for. This is something he did. This is part of his punishments when he had the I believe it was the Curtis family. I can't exactly remember the exact, but I think it was Curtis family who fled from him and he recaptured them because after slavery was abolished, it was like a 5-year period where he was going to hold them captive as slaves, and then there was a revolt under his establishment where he was trying to run his father's plantation, which he didn't want to. But you know why he didn't want to run the plantation? Because he felt like it was a hassle. He felt like it was a hassle. He said that slavery was harder for white men than it was for black people because they had to run slavery. So he believed that slavery was harder on the people who had the slaves than the slaves who were being beaten, raped, and abused and used as alligator bait, and mutilated and tortured and forced to work for free. And he believed that it was harder on white men because it was such a hassle to run it and maintain it. This is not a falsehood. I'm not telling you. I am looking at a lot of information based off of him. Now, I've checked a lot of different sites and Wikipedias and things like that where you want to make sure that you fact check some of the information that you get and compare and contrast it to this and that. So you don't want to get like a biased take on who he is. You want to go for the most neutral websites that you can find that will give you a lot of the information, but it won't try to give it a political spin for left-leaning or right-leaning. You want to give a neutral one. So a lot of this one had multiple takes from both sides, where you had people who defended his actions and defended him, saying he wasn't a bad guy, he was just fighting for the South. But then you had others that were like, he was a racist, he was a slave owner, he's this and that. Then you had the neutral takes that were like, well, what it was is the most neutral takes about him call him one of the nice slave owners. Now, I'm going to explain to you what a nice slave owner is because me and my mom talk about this a lot. The nice slave owner is still a mentality that exists today, where you have the white neutral, the white person who will see a person of color be gunned down in the street by a cop, and that person wouldn't have been doing anything wrong. Then you have that white neutral say, well, why can't we see the whole video? Well, what did the black guy say to the cop to make him get shot? Well, the cop had to have thought he was suspicious. He was walking down the street at night. You'll have that person that will be the white neutral, where it's a similar take on Robert E. Lee, where they won't love slavery. This is what he is. He did not love slavery. He recognized it as it existed, but he also he was not pro slavery, but he was not con slavery. He wasn't anti slavery, which that's a problem because you kind of have to be one or the other. That's one of the things like where we're at today, where it's like you almost have to pick sides. If you see somebody wrongfully get killed, you kind of have to be like, hey, that's wrong. I don't care who it is. I really don't think that's okay. Just like with slavery, this guy, Robert E. Lee, not only did he own slaves, not only did he not think that black people were equal, which you can say that you didn't support slavery or not, but rather like you did not find black people equal. He did not believe they should be able to vote. He thought they were a third of a person. He thought they were an inferior race. This is what he thought. This is his ideology. Now, he could have been one of those guys who was like, I'm not fighting to keep black people enslaved. I'm fighting for the economy of the South. That is what these people will do to try to twist the narrative of what the Civil War was fought about. It's like we were fighting for the economy. We were fighting against Northern tyranny. Well, no, you kind of weren't. You were kind of fighting so you could own people. You were kind of fighting so you could have people as playthings that were a different color than you. And that's a thing. That's what we have to understand. That's what we really need to look at, is that if the South won the war, I would still be a slave. Think about that. For anybody, if anybody tries to talk to you about how the Civil War was not fought over slavery, tell them that if the South won, your person of color, if you're a person of color, your family, or someone you care about, your husband, your wife, your grandkids, your kids, they would be slaves if the South won. So you cannot tell me that slavery was not a big enough part of the Civil War to where these people were willing to go to war and fight and kill and die for it. So that brings me to the point of, why do we have monuments up of this guy? Why do we have monuments up of a guy who whipped, beat, murdered, and owned slaves, and did not believe in equality of black people, did not believe that black people could vote, did not believe that we should be free, did not believe that we were more than a third of a human being? He said that we did not have the mental capacity to handle voting. Why do we have statues up of this guy? Why? Why do we have statues up of this guy and anybody who fought with him? His side clearly was not anti-slavery. That is the point. It does not matter what they were heroes. They went out there and bravely fought and died. They fought and died to keep black people in chains. Whether or not they were morally, maliciously saying, I want to keep some blacks. Whether or not they owned slaves or not, if you fought with the South, you should not be honored. Your heritage needs to be stepped on. You do not deserve to fly your flag in the faces of the people who stomped out your tyranny. You were tyrants. The South was tyrants over people of color. You do not deserve to fly your flag at NASCAR. You deserve to have it removed. You do not deserve to have your monuments. You deserve to have them removed. If you want them in a Civil War museum, that's fine. But you do not deserve to have them in a public place to where you can idolize them. No, eat a dick. 2 of them, actually. That's how I feel about the South. The South shall rise again. The Civil War. The whole flying the Confederate flag. No, eat a dick. Confederate flag, eat a dick. Just eat 2. Eat 1, eat 2. Eat dicks. All of them. like no. You don't get to try to spin your narrative and make it like you don't get to be a Southern apologist and think that, oh, well, not all of those guys were bad. Yeah, but enough of them were bad that they were willing to fight to keep me in chains. So, there's that. So, yeah, do I support the tearing down of these monuments? Yes, 100% I do. Do I believe that these schools and towns should be renamed from Robert E. Lee Town to Robert E. Lee High School to Columbus State Community College? Yes, I believe they should be renamed to somebody who deserves the praise, who deserves the memory, who deserves the credit, who deserves to be remembered in the light that we, every time we go through that town, we remember what this person did. If you like, why don't we have schools named after Harriet Tubman? Why don't we have schools like, you can have a school named after Abraham Lincoln? Sure, why not? Now, I like that. Abraham Lincoln is a totally different thing, because I know that just because he freed the slaves doesn't mean that he thought black people were equal. That's just fact. He didn't think black people were equal either, which that's a common trend in North and South. It doesn't matter. But the point remains the same. If you want to remember history, open a book. If you want to remember history, open your computer browser and search the web. Go to the History Channel. That's fine. We have plenty of sources of information where you can find. You have a local library where you have thousands and thousands of books, text and pages and words written down for forever. For as long as we keep them safe, you can read about these people and you can learn about them. You can read different accounts about them. You don't need a statue, because what statues are for, just like we have statues of Rocky and we have statues of Martin Luther King, we have statues of our favorite icons from history, we remember them as good things. We remember them as people who we admire. You don't build a statue of somebody who killed and murdered a lot of people. This is something like Hitler in Germany. If you know that Hitler murdered all these people, then why would you put up a statue of Hitler's first general? Why would you do that? And then just imagine a German defending in Germany, saying, well, Hitler was the one who wanted all the Jews killed. His first commander, he didn't really like the Third Reich idea all that much. He really didn't. He was just kind of there, and he kind of ran one of the concentration camps, and that was it. That was it, though. He didn't actually kill any of them. He just ran it. Like, that's it. You sound dumb. You sound stupid. Don't try, like, you're defending this heritage of hate. If your heritage is hate, it doesn't have to be. You have plenty of heritage that can be honorable. You have plenty of heritage that you can go back further, that you can look back further and think, okay, well, as far as America is concerned, we kind of wrecked stuff here. We kind of tore some junk up, and we tore the people apart. We caused genocide for the natives. We enslaved people of a different culture from a different continent and brought them here and disenfranchised them, and then told them, get a job. Like, okay, like, you got to realize what it looks like from other people's perspective besides your own. Take off your rose-tinted glasses. Stop looking at history as you were taught in first grade. Open a book, open your web browser, and do some real research about these historical figures, and realize what they mean to people who aren't like you, who do not echo the same ideological beliefs as you, and do not echo them out of the same ignorance as you. You have to understand what this looks like from people of color. If a person of color comes up to Robert E. Lee and looks at a statue of this man on a horse, I'm going to have feelings of disdain towards this man, because I know what he believed in. I know what he did. I know that he owned people that looked like me. And if he won the war, he still would, and his descendants still would. So just take some time. Stop looking at things from your own view. Open your mind to talk to other people about these things. And like I said, as for the statues, tear them down. Tear them all down. 100% of them. Put them in museums if you want to. Take a picture of them and put it in a book. It'll remain there. We have pictures. Take a picture of it. We don't need the monument. We don't need them. We do not need them. Y'all want them. You don't need them. It's not history. It's not history. It's not history. So, anyways, guys, let me know if there's any other controversial topics that you would like me to cover. Um, I'm just now getting comfortable talking about a lot of these controversial topics, and they always extend to be like 30 minutes long, which, I mean, I know you probably don't want to sit here and listen to me ramble about a certain topic for 30 minutes, but I'm hoping that I can reach certain people who may not um, know as many things and want to hear a different perspective than their own. I hope to reach those people, and I'm just hoping to do my part with my platform to try to use my voice to express myself and do my best attempt at educating other people from my perspective, the meaning of things from me. Just like I talked about Black Lives and Blue Lives Matter and things like that, I'm giving you me. This is the best that I can do. I can attend every Black Lives Matter rally in the world, but if I'm not using my platform to speak on things like this and to do my best to make sure that those who follow me understand these things as best as possible, then I'm not using my platform correctly. So let me know in the comment section if there's any other controversial topics or any other topics that you would just like to hear about, period, from me. And appreciate you coming out. Hope you had a good time. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.